our split definition, right? And so this is where there's like a bit of energy connected, and then there's a gap. So if you look on our side graphic, we have that same single definition from the last slide, but now there's also some head definition. So this is when energetic definition is to split in two parts. And so these people are really here to value relationships, and they can make strong connections because and they can also fixate on that missing link. It's almost like a puzzle piece that if that puzzle piece is there, it's connecting all their energy into this cohesive unit. This is like having two conversations inside of you at the same time. You got this bit of energy up here and this bit of energy down here, and on your own, they're not communicating. So there's two conversations happening, but they're not necessarily connected. And then the primary conditioning here is the gaps in the definition. So it's like the puzzle piece that's missing between the split definition.
And it's so important to point out the thing that's conditioning us, because as soon as there's a split in your definition, you go to that, the mind goes to that, and then the conditioning starts to take us away from our nature and take us away from, I'm a manifestor, I'm supposed to be this way, I'm a generator, I'm here to be this way, and it takes us away from all of that. And the looking at it becomes the thing that you sort of can easily obsess yourself with in a split definition. Other things about a split definition is I love the two conversations. That's sort of anthropomorphizing it, but at the same time, it is two separate information flows coming into your awareness. So suddenly, in this example, the ajna and the head center will suddenly have a certainty about something. A cognition will come through, a bright idea, and it feels good, and it's being worked through, right? Because that's the toy box up there. Yay. And then suddenly it now doesn't manifest. It's no motors. And now the head says, I want to do, but the body with the ego and the motor and the rest of the definition inside might not be in the mood. Can't quite tell. We just don't know. And then the head is, why am I stopping? And the single definition will have some of that, but less, a lot less. And they should notice that.
Yeah, I find with like my split definition friends, there is a way where it's like I feel they almost value me more than I value them, which kind of sounds a little funny as like a single definition, because it's like I'm just doing my own thing, my single definition. I got two centers, so it's not like there's a lot going on, but it's like I am always me. Whereas my split definition friends were like I'm their puzzle piece. They so value and appreciate and honor me. And then I also see how maybe they have another person who puzzle pieces them in a different way. And they so value and appreciate like how their specific puzzle piece fits them together. And so they really, really appreciate the good people in their life who connect their energy in a harmonizing, cohesive way.
Yeah, it's a really profound thing, because one needs the other more so is actually a sort of a truism. And where it gets taken away, where it takes us, sweeps us away into what we're really, brings us heartache and sorrow, is when we start making that personal is the thing. It's true on a very surface level. It's simply correct to say the split definition needs the single definition more than the single needs the split. That's okay. It just means that the single gets to be aware of that, and it doesn't make them any less of your friend. And by the way, they're just as confused about who they are as you are. So no one's disadvantaged really.
Yeah,
So
it's just understanding the mechanics.
It's just because it can become a head trip out in the world. They don't need me. And now in comes the toy box to start saying stuff, and none of it is true. It's like fruit of the poisonous tree, in law, right? It's like, oh, you can't use that because you illegally got it, right? Everyone knows that. So you can't use anything after that. It's the same thing here. As soon as you pass the mark where your mind starts making the decision, all of it is colored with what you're not. All of it. It's a batch of yucky, even if there's plenty of good stuff in there. So
don't get lost in the yucky stories.
Yes. It's your story is, hey, I need a minute. And I need you too. Do you mind? Oh, you do? I guess I don't get to have you. That's okay, but I still need a minute.
Perfect. All right. I feel good about split definition. Ready to jump in? All right. So now we have splitting the difference. So this is where we're going to be looking at the differences between like smaller and wider splits. So if you look at our graphic towards the top, there's a wider split, right? It's like that head and ajna in green, and then there's like a bigger gap within the identity and the will and the spleen. So there's a wider gap, whereas the bottom graphic, they're like right up close to each other. So it's like you have the differences between the orange and the green, but it's a smaller gap.
It ends up being the simple split is one gate bridges you, and sometimes one channel. The larger split is usually a whole channel bridges you. It takes a whole channel or more. It takes two or more gates to bridge you. I'd say the majority is the truly simple split. One gate bridges them.
Yeah.
And then that missing gate becomes the thing that you look for the most. And we'll deal with that on a one-on-one basis when you come in for, readings and analysis and stuff.
Yeah, so I have some good stuff on this one. So like Danny said, the simple split is the two unconnected defined areas. And then a narrow split is when it's one gate or a channel that are separating these two conversations, right? So the split definition is like there's two conversations happening. And so when it's a narrow split, it's like a gate or a channel. And it's like being in the same room and the same side of the table next to each other, right? There's the two conversations, same room, same side of the table. This one's really fun. So if someone has a missing gate, they can have a tendency to blame themselves because they have half of it, but they can't quite go the full way. And they're like, what's wrong with me? Whereas when somebody's missing an entire channel, it's like they're more likely to blame the other person of just like, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you like bridging these two? Because it's an entire channel. But the wide split, it's multiple gates or multiple channels, right? There's a bigger gap. So in this situation, when there's a wide split, it's like there's two conversations happening, but you're like opposite ends of the table. And when someone has a wide split, they're more likely to kind of blame the world because there's so much energy between their two parts. It's like they're mad at like so much that those are not connected beyond blaming themselves or blaming the other, like with a smaller split.
And to put it in context, you don't start out naturally blaming anything. It's what happens is because you're in a world, and so we're going to assume you don't live under a rock and you have relationships in the world. That's where it comes in, and suddenly the little mundane things that go on a daily basis start to add up. And because there's such a wide split and that processing takes multiple gates to sort of get through, it does start to involve everyone. It's like, what's wrong with they? What's wrong with out there? What's wrong with, and what's wrong with? So it encompasses both because they will focus that at the individual other. So.
Mm-hmm. And then the final point on this slide is if there's body graph setup with like separate authorities. So let's say like there's a chunk that has like the ego, but then there's another chunk that has the solar plexus. It might feel like chaotic or even overwhelming because it's like, who are you listening to? Who's in charge? And it can feel like you're not quite on the same page or you don't know what you're doing until those two can kind of even themselves out.
Yeah, they do, and they can war with each other, or they can totally get along and see what the real beauty of any split is. The real beauty of the split is it makes communion easier. As soon as you get out of the old ego I, which is a little bit yucky, and get into the true identity plus ego, us, you start to see that I just have to not take this personally. It's not my fault anyways. That's the thing, and that's this personal thing you get to where when you start to follow your strategy and authority, you'll see, oh, I used to hate that and now I don't because it's actually not me. I'm projecting that out and it's actually not helping. That's what you'll start to see. And in the recognition of it's not helping, you'll then start to realize, oh, in just seeing it's not helping, that's helping the other person and me. So that's the beauty of this. It's a double reward system as soon as you get to see it.
Perfect.